Is far less than the private labs in the state of Maine. In many cases, HETL prices are 30 to 50% less than private labs. There is considerable room to raise the prices at HETL and provide funding for the projects proposed. This would put HETL on the same competitive footing as the private labs. The additional funds generated could be earmarked for the proposed projects. In addition, HETL could offer free or discounted testing to the low-income population. This would alleviate the burden on the water testing labs and the water treatment companies. I'm sure that there are many other alternatives. Air and Water Quality has 25 full-time employees in the state of Maine. We offer very competitive wages. All employees are offered company-paid health insurance, vacation, sick pay, and company contributions to the retirement program. In summary, I believe that there is a considerable amount that can be accomplished by promoting education and assistance for water testing and water treatment. However, it should not be funded on the backs of water treatment companies or their customers. Maine is already near the bottom rung when it comes to economic opportunities. Do you want to further increase the burden on small business?
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no questions, thank you very much for coming here today. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill?
Good afternoon, committee. Honorable members, thank you for having us here today. Unfortunately, I only found out about this proposed bill yesterday afternoon, which is another issue I'd like to take up with somebody at some other time, but I'm not sure how this gets communicated. My name is Bo Mears, and I'm from Westbrook, Maine, and I own Northeast Laboratories companies in Portland and in Winslow. We have about 85 employees, and we do about 14,000 water tests per year, and last year we did 18,000 radon tests. So as you can see, a $5 increase on the 14,000, and then whatever percent of the radon, that's going to be well in excess of $50,000. And when you're looking at gross margin on this, we'd have to do another $250,000 in sales. I guess I too, like Mike, think the proposal in the bill is a good idea, but how it's going to be funded, the way it's written, I think is going to cause some serious problems. Logistically, I think it's going to be a nightmare to try to report on, to keep track of. You guys passed, I think it was LD 943, a radon bill. The radon bill was to get every apartment house owner in the state of Maine to do a test. I don't think it's been monitored correctly. I personally know probably only 50% of these places have been done. And again, someone reported before that 21,000 people a year die from lung cancer that do not smoke. Concerns with your panel, I mean, we currently do 15 analytes, and apologies to who thinks it's very complicated, but we do 15 analytes as part of our standard water test. And that's E. coli, that's bacteria, it's arsenic, it's everything else in there. And now you guys want to add radon to it. Radon is a gas, it's not a metal, it's two separate machines. For us to include that, and you guys only want 5, we're going to have to raise our price from, which we're around $90, to well over $100, and it's going to be cost prohibitive to anybody out there that already does water testing. Because I think a lot of people don't do it because they can't afford it even at this level. How many full water tests does the state do a year? I mean, like Mike, they're my competition, and I can't beat them. They already have about 5 or 6 of my employees because they get paid better and have a pension, and I guess Augusta is better than living up in Winslow, especially if you're a younger person. But it's terribly difficult to compete against the state lab, and this is going to make it even worse. Once we do have this thing, if it does become operable, how will the state going to be the one giving these away free, what it can do for low-income families? Are they going to come to us? Nobody knows this, but we probably did 10% of our tests last year at no charge to people that couldn't afford it. Anybody walks in and says, we can't afford to do this, we'll do it for nothing. In summary, and I won't go through, please read this, I've been probably a lot more thorough, and I've included prices, I've included all the standard water testing that we do, and I also included 3 labs, including the state prices on here. But in summary, I'd like to say that I don't oppose the bill in trying to help, and we already have a bill for the Maine Drinking Water Program, by the way. I don't know if you guys know this, but when you try to report this and monitor it, I'm going to have to add employees. I'm going to have to develop an electronic data transfer system to try to send the data in every test, and it's going to be logistically, it's going to be another nightmare. And I thank you very much for hearing me, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you. I have one question. And so you're the second person to bring this up, the state lab and the state lab doing testing at prices. I don't know how much you know about them or their operations. Is that something that, are they able to do those testings a lot cheaper because we taxpayers subsidize it?
Yes, and I mean, the state lab, my taxes pay for the employees that I trained,
Yeah.
and they moved to the state lab because of the pension, because they got maybe more money, but it's still my taxes. They can direct competition with private business, and as I told the governor, I don't think for most cases it should even exist. Not in that concept, because my lab, there's A&L labs here, we do the same work.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. I know the governor always says it's in the yellow pages, why are we doing it?
Well, I agree with him on that subject.
So, anyway, that's kind of tangential to this topic, but I appreciate the issue being brought up, and curious about that. Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill.
It's a party up here at the podium. Senator Brakey, members of the committee, Representative Gadeen. My name is James Cody. I'm here today on behalf of the Maine Groundwater Association. I reside in Farmington, Maine, and coincidentally, my father-in-law owns a well drilling business, so this is a family issue for me as well. What I think I'm going to do is, first of all, echo some of the comments that you've just heard by the previous two speakers. I don't think there's any issue. We're here today, and there's about 25 companies that have signed this letter, and they're in the audience, and I'm sure they'll kind of give you a nod as to who they are, and a couple of speakers will come up after me to talk about some of the technical aspects of this bill. But I don't think there's any question, there's no discrepancy that these companies believe in clean drinking water as well, and obviously we don't want arsenic and other forms of chemicals in that drinking water at any unsafe level. The question, I think, does come down to how is this program going to be created, how is it going to be funded, and is it the right strategy to assess this fee on the businesses and the members of the public who are also, for the most part, trying to do the right thing. So we certainly support the notion of making the public more aware of this issue, but it's a matter of how to pay for it and how it gets structured, and then who's accountable for this. You know, a couple of questions that were raised in our initial conversations, you know, how much revenue is expected to be generated for this program? How much overhead is this program going to cost? What's the budget? What's the plan? What does it look like? I think those are important questions to ask. You know, the other thought that popped into my mind as I'm listening to some of the proponents was, this seems like a very logical project for a grant funding program of some sort. It seems to me that there must be grant funding in the private sector, or maybe even in the public sector, that would be available for this. And I don't know if those have been explored or not, but certainly it's something worth exploring. With specific reference to the bill, just a couple of items of concern. The first one is obviously the fees. We do oppose new fees incurred on each water sample, and the bill as written is a little problematic or confusing in a sense, because it isn't clear, is it every test that happens, or is it overall one test for a variety of different chemicals is assessed a $5 fee? So that was a little confusing. The second thing, Section 4700, the drinking water well test, we are very concerned about this section in particular, as it is a bit vague. For instance, the well driller will be responsible to send the water sample. Will the well driller be responsible to send the water sample, or is a certified lab going to have to come on site and do these tests? There's some language there that's confusing, and it may be something that can be fixed fairly easily, but there are certainly some problematic statements in the legislation itself. So for those reasons, I see my time is running out. We are here in opposition
obviously here in support of the cause, but I think we need to find a different way to do it.
All right. Any questions from this committee? Representative Head.
Thank you. When you drill a well, don't you have to wait a certain amount of time for all the sediment and everything to come out of it? You wouldn't do the testing right away.
I believe you are absolutely right, and I bet there's going to be a couple of gentlemen behind me that can answer that question very specifically.
I would think that it would. We've had some wells drilled.
Absolutely.
And they told us not to have it tested for 30 days. That makes it, but is 30 days long enough?
Right.
Just to adequately test for radon and the arsenic.
You will see that we also brought up that question in our testimony, and we'll get that passed out. And certainly there's some experts coming behind me as well.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill? Welcome.
Thank you. Senator Reiki, Senator Patine, members of the committee. My name is Ike Goodwin. I'm from Turner. I'm president of Goodwin Well and Water. We're a fourth generation company that drills water wells, installs pump systems, and installs water treatment systems. So this is a very important subject for us. You know, I've dedicated over 40 years of my life to providing safe and dependable water supplies to my customers, and so it's to be honest with you, hear some of the testimony earlier. Maybe I'm the bad guy here. I'm drilling wells that people are, you know, but I know the practices that we use, and I'll explore those. I'm not going to read my testimony in respect of your time. I strongly support the intent of this legislation, and I hope that something passes that works and works well. I also strongly support the concept that there needs to be one set of water tests that a Maine homeowner can, you know, have done, and they know that when they're done, that their water is safe. We've had too many situations where they take the standard test, it's called the mortgage approval test. It does now include arsenic, but it does not include radon or uranium or fluoride. And those things need to be tested. And we need to make it easy for the consumer to understand what test they need, and to have the confidence that when they get the results, they know their water is safe. My concern here is specifically new wells, and what appears to be the responsibility put on the driller of doing the testing. Representative Head, you're exactly right. When a well is drilled, you have to then put the pump system in. It has to be disinfected, the complete well and pump system. It needs to set for some time overnight typically, and then it needs to be flushed thoroughly. You know, several well volumes pumped out before you can get a representative test. Anything taken before is not going to be representative. So in order for a well driller to do this, they're going to have to come back again later on and do all of this, and it's going to significantly add to the cost. It's not necessary. I'll tell you the experience of our company. Every customer that we deal with, we start educating them very early on the need to have their water tested. And again, once the well is drilled, we tell them that again. When we install the pump system, everything is disinfected, and we leave a test kit with them from a state-approved lab. And that test does include radon and uranium and fluoride, as well as everything else. It's critically important. And we tell them that there are, you know, effective solutions if they have any problems, and we're there to help them. Clearly, over 90% of my customers have their water tested, and they follow through. People want to know that their water is safe. And if they're given the proper education and it's made easy and made economical to them, they will follow through and do that. The last comment I'll make in closing is that I do have strong concerns with the fees. If we want to increase the number of wells that are tested and increase the number of mitigation systems that are installed, we need to make these less expensive, not more expensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Hymanson.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for coming. What you described is a great system. Is that an industry standard, or is it something that your company does, or should it be an industry standard to teach people, give them a kit give them the education around their new well and let them do their own thing?
I don't think there's any question, but we can up our standards, up our performance in our industry. In my written testimony, I disclose that I'm a commissioner of the Maine Water Well Commission. And the commission establishes minimum performance standards for well drillers and pump installers and licenses them. And my suggestion to you is to refer this issue of the driller's role in this whole issue to the commission and let them go through a rulemaking process. And I'm very confident that we will, address that issue in a very effective way. We, as an industry, there's no question we need to do a better job of educating our consumers. But I think the bigger problem you're hearing today is not so much new wells as it is existing wells that haven't previously been tested.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much for your testimony. Is there additional testimony in opposition to this bill? Welcome.
Thank you.
Just so we get a sense of things, how many people are still here to testify on this bill who have not yet testified? Okay, just a handful more. All right, great. Just wanted to see where we are.
All right.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. All right, before I get started, along with my testimony, I've included some information. What I did was I went online, and I think Representative Hymanson had recommended the CDC has information. There's a nice pamphlet that if you do go online, that you can find. I also included some information that we use that actually is from Northeast Labs when we fill out a water test, just to show what the options are and what the costs are right now associated with water testing.
For the people who might be listening online, could you state your name?
Oh, yes.
And town?
My name's Ted Rolfe. I'm from Farmingdale. So I'll just start with my presentation. Senator Brakey, Representative Gatine, members of the Health and Human Resources Committee. I'm Ted Rolfe, a licensed well driller doing business in the state of Maine. I am speaking today on behalf of the Maine Groundwater Association. The Maine Groundwater Association is a statewide organization of over 100 members. It is dedicated to the continuing education of its members and the public in an effort to protect Maine's groundwater resource. We oppose LD 1162, which proposes mandatory water testing on new and improved wells, along with the establishing of water testing and water treatment equipment fees. Some of the reasons we are in opposition are, one, we believe that this bill will actually result in less water testing rather than more. There are far more private water wells currently in operation than new wells being drilled. Even though testing of these existing wells is not mandatory under this bill, we feel that additional fees and administrative laboratory costs will force the overall price of water testing to increase, resulting in less residential private drinking water wells being tested and less safe water. We also believe that private water wells are just that, private personal property, which should not be subject to a water tax or a fee, or mandatory water testing. To test or not to test should be left in the hands of the ever more informed well owner, which moves on to 3, which is where your brochures came in. We believe that easy to find educational resources are readily available. Simply type in a search for Maine well water takes those looking to educate themselves about their drinking water to wellwater.maine.gov, and there's an abundance of well water information on the site, such as is your well water safe to drink, and that's the brochure that you have. There's also a video demonstrating how to test your well water, a list of Maine water testing labs, and much, much more. Education like this just seems a much better option than the mandatory water testing, mandatory fees, and the new or larger departments within the state government that would have to create. Part of our concern also is there's some vague areas in the bill, subsection 2260, and I won't go through and read it, but it just talks about enforcement, and as well drilling companies, if we're required to take these water tests, we're a little bit concerned about how this is intended to be enforced as well as by whom. Should we as the drillers of the well expect to be penalized with fines or fees for the actions of non-compliant customers who refuse to pay the cost of a mandatory water test? As licensed professional well drillers, we do recommend that private well owners test their water. And in discussing this with some of my peers who are in this room today, I discovered that they too recommend that their customers add arsenic, uranium, and radon to the standard water test. The standard water test already includes, and the one that I provided you actually does include fluoride, manganese, and many other contaminants. When typically, and I'll speak for myself, gosh, damn out of time, so I won't even go on. We just would encourage you to vote not to pass.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your testimony and for being here today. Additional testimony in opposition to this bill. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, I hear your commercials on the radio.
Thank you all for having me today. My name is Kevin Casterman. I am previous owner of Dunbar Water and now market manager for Dunbar Water, a Dead River company. I hold a level 2 state of Maine community water license, which means we can work on public water systems in the state of Maine, and also have a state of Maine water mitigating license. I promote water testing as a whole. I teach numerous community adult education classes on water testing. Those classes are free to anyone in attendance, and they also get a water test, a comprehensive water test for half price at a certified lab. It's a passion of mine to make sure people are educated about what's in their drinking water. I also teach the state of Maine real estate class for water testing and water remediation options. So I am for testing, absolutely. What I am against is a bureaucracy associated with this bill. Unlike many contaminants in water, such as iron, manganese, and hardness, the items that we're concerned about you cannot see, taste, or smell. That means education is essential. Everyone we speak to says, I have great drinking water, look at it. I won't drink it. I'd rather drink iron-filled water that I know has no bacteria, arsenic, uranium, or fluoride in it. So it's a concern. Education is the key. Arsenic is a problem with ingestion, which equates to drinking and cooking. And acceptable limits were lowered so that you're aware in 2006 from 50 parts down to 10. So that's the date that everything pretty much changed. It didn't change the effect, but it changed the limits on the testing. The reason I'm against the bureaucracy in the bill is Maine has a radon control program. Our company has to put in a report every month to the state of Maine that records every radon system in water that we installed, which simply means we have to say we installed the system, this is the address, this was the level of radon that was in that water. That report on every single real estate class I teach, by show of hands, show me who has got a copy of that report. No one. It's confidential information. It just sickens me. We have all that information. I have overhead associated with collecting that, and the state does not disperse that information. I would love to know where that goes. That's a concern. A simple solution is for the state, as many spoke, to have a simple water test required. This is the minimum that we require. They can create with the professionals, even the Well Drilling Commission, can come up with that distinct list. Every time we're called to do a water test, what town are you in? Everyone has a different water test. We want a state mandated water test that lists all of the essentials, and the next and most important part is it requires outreach on education. People are drinking well water assuming it's clear and safe. Essential is the education. And I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee. Representative Vashon.
First, thank you for your testimony. I was wondering if you